Hi everybody, here we are still in Unit 0, Lesson 6, Scientific Notation. So to start off with, there is a video in Edpuzzle called Scientific Notation Conversion. It's going to walk through the difference between the standard form or the long form of writing out a number and scientific notation. So pause this video, go to Edpuzzle, watch the video, take notes as you go along, and then come back to this video. You have some practice to help you be successful in doing scientific notation problems. The first part of the guided notes practice has you change a scientific notation number to long form. And then the second part of it has you take the number and change it to scientific notation. So pause the video, work on your practice problems, and then you can come back to this video. The should do for this lesson on scientific notation is there's an interactive that you can practice your scientific notation skills. And so you can put in your answer, check the answer, and then it will show you the answer. The Aspire to is Unit 0, Lesson 6C, which is number 23 in your Unit 0 packet. And it's just more scientific notation practice. So here we go. Number 1 for change to the standard format. Remember that in science, we want to see your W's. Go ahead, roll those eyes. I can see you doing it. Okay, here we go. So we write the number. And then I'm going to decide which direction I'm going to move since it's in scientific notation. The negative number tells me that it's a small number. So I'm going to move the decimal place to the left 7 places. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Put zeros in for the blank bubbles. And my answer, rewrite it neatly. And for me, when I'm writing numbers, I want to make sure I get the right number of stuff. So I'm going to count by 3s. So there's 3 zeros together. Here's 3 zeros together. And then 3, 4, 4, 3. Circle my answer, and voila, I'm done with number 1. Number 2, I'm going to check the exponent. The negative sign tells me that I'm going to be moving to the left, and it's going to be a small number. So I'm going to move 7 spaces to the left. So there's a trick in this one in that you would probably think just by looking at it that you are going to be moving to the right because there's so many numbers. So we're going to move the decimal 7 places to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Put zeros in for the blank bubbles. And then rewrite our answer neatly. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 7, 7, 5. 7, 6, 3. And then give it a circle. Number 3. For some reason, this worksheet really liked the number 7. So again, we're going to move 7 to the left. So I'm going to write my number and then do my moving. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My new decimal point. The empty bubbles get zeros. Rewrite my answer neatly so my teacher will be happy. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Number 4, aha, we don't have the exponent of 7, we have a 6. And since it's positive, that tells me that I'm going to have a very large number. So I'm going to move 6 places to the right. So I write my number, and I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's my new decimal point. Put in zeros for the blank bubbles. And I'm going to rewrite my answer nicely so my teacher will be happy. So 1, 2, 3, there's going to be a comma. 1, 2, 3, there's going to be a comma. Bada bing, there's their answer. Here's that exponent of 7 again, only this time it's a positive 7. So we're going to move 7 spaces to the right. So if you remember, I keep saying so, if you remember back when we were doing bubble metrics, that it's assumed that the decimal in a whole number is at the end of the number. So 58,157 decimal point. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. We need to make a change. Something got cut off when I printed this to the slides. On your worksheet, this is the number. So it's not 58157. It's 6.58157. You don't have to do anything. It's just that it didn't, it cut off that 6 there on the slides when I made them. Okay, so here we go. We write our number. And I'm going to be moving 7 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Put in my new decimal and put in my blank bubbles with zeros. So since it's a big number, here's a comma and here's a comma. Rewrite my answer neatly. Okay, number 6. We look at our exponent. We have a negative number. That means we have going to have a smaller number, and we're going to move 4 places to the left. So I write my number, and now I'm going to move my decimal point. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fill in my empty bubbles with zeros. Rewrite my answer so my teacher will like my neatness. And then circle my answer. So I look at my exponent, it's negative. So that means I have a small number, and I'm going to move me 7 spaces to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Put in my new decimal point. Fill in the empty bubbles with zeros. Neatly rewrite my answer. And circle my answer. Exponent. So we're moving 7 to the left. 5, 6, 7. New decimal point. Fill in the empty bubbles with zeros. Rewrite my answer. And give it a good circle. exponent tells me I'm moving left, and I'm going to be moving left 5 spaces. 7.141. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fill in the empty bubbles with zeros. And give it a circle. Positive exponent, that means we're going to be moving to the right, and we're going to be moving to the right 6 spots. So 5.26, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, new decimal. Figure out where my comma is going to be. And write my new answer. Okay, so before we go on to the next part, in which you're given the long form of the number, the standard form, and asked to change it into scientific notation, we're going to do a little bit of review of scientific notation to help you out. When you're changing a number to scientific notation, you want one whole number and then the decimal point. When you get into other science classes, they might have you use significant figures and that sort of thing. For this practice, we're going to keep the whole number. And so let's pretend that I have 1, 8, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 pennies. Let's say I have that many pennies. And I want you to change it to scientific notation. Because when we're dealing with money, I don't want to make a mistake and leave off a 0. And so in this example, we know that the decimal is here at the end. Because every whole number, the decimal is going to be at the very end. For scientific notation, we want one whole number and then the decimal. So one whole number, not 2, 1, and the decimal point. So what do I have to do to turn it into? How many bubbles, how many places to the left do I need to move? And if you remember from math, every time you move to the right or to the left, it's by a 10. And so I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So this is where a lot of kids get mixed up and confused, in that they're going to put negative 15 because you moved to the left. This is different than the practice we did before. So you have to take a step back and look at what you're working at. To change this, so to change this number back to our original number, which direction do we go? And we would have to go to the right. Don't try to remember things. Try to understand it conceptually. A lot of people do this. If you move this way, that way, then you negative sign, that sign. And they always get it mixed up. This is where people make a mistake. So always go back and ask yourself, I started out with a really big number, so then I need to have a positive exponent. Let's look at one that would have a negative exponent. And so same rule applies. Here's my starting decimal. I'm going to have to move my decimal. I want one whole number, and I'm going to put my new decimal point. I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So at this point, I know how many bubbles I need to bubble, but I need to know, is it positive or negative? So when I look at this, do I have a big number to start out with, or a little number? And I have a little number, less than 1. So I know that to change that back to the regular form, it's going to be negative. Okay, let's get to some practice. So the first step, write your number so you can do your bubbles. And just like we did in bubble metrics, I'm going to put a big dot where I'm starting and an X to where I want to end up. One whole number and then my new decimal. So I'm going to move 1, 2 places. So I'm going to have 7.882 times 10 to positive or negative. So for this to go to this, I'm going to go to the left. So it's a negative exponent. And if you get to this point and you're like, am I correct or not? All you have to do is write it out to the side. And let's say I put times 10 to the second and then convert it. 1, 2, that would leave me with 788.2. So that would show me that the positive direction wouldn't be correct. Again, don't try to memorize things. Try to understand it conceptually. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite. I'm going to count by 3s, that's easier. So here's where I'm starting. I want one whole number, and here's where I'm going to end up with my new decimal. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bubbles. So I have 2.723338 times 10 to the 6th. And here's where I got to ask myself again. Is my beginning number a big number or a little number? And since it's a really little number, I know that my exponent is going to be negative. Guess what I didn't do back here on this one? I didn't do this. Okay, so I'm going to write my number. I'm going to put where my decimal starts, and then where I want my decimal to end up for scientific notation. One whole number. So I have 1.18, and I don't have to write the zeros because they're just placeholders there. And it's 10 to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I look at my beginning number. Is it a big number? Or is it a really small number, smaller than 1? And it's a big number, so I'm going to leave my exponent as positive. And we forgot to talk about that with a whole number, it's understood that the decimal is at the end. Same thing with this one. It's understood that the decimal is at the end of the whole number. So here's where I'm starting, and for scientific notation, here's what I want to end up, one whole number. So I end up with 8.72 times 10 to the 1, 2, 3, 4 spot. I look back. This is a number bigger than 1, so it's probably going to be a positive exponent. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look back at my beginning number. It's a small number, smaller than 1. So I have a negative exponent. Here's where I start. Here's where I want to end up. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I need to decide if it's positive or negative, and this is a really small number, so it's going to be a -7. Again, if you get to this point and you're unsure, just simply pull out your answer and then change it back to standard form, and see if you get the right answer. Understood that this is where the decimal's at. Here's where I want to end up. Don't have to write the 0 because it's after the decimal. 1, 2 spaces. And I look at my starting number and it's bigger than 1. So it's going to be a positive exponent. Here's where I'm starting. Here's where I want to be, one whole number. One, 2, 3, 4. And I look at my beginning number and it's a big number. It's bigger than 0. And so I'll circle it and my exponent is positive. And again, if you aren't sure, just simply pull over your answer and then change it back to standard form and see if you get the right answer. Here's where I'm starting. Here's where I want to end up. First whole number. One, 2. I look at my starting number, it is bigger than 0, so I'm going to have a positive exponent. And our last practice problem. Where I'm starting, where I want to end up. This is going to be my whole number. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I look at my beginning number and that's a number less than 0, so my exponent is going to be negative. So don't forget there's a should do for this activity, which is the interactive practice for scientific notation, and then there's an aspire to, which is an extra practice page.